What's going on, guys? Unofficial M2 here. Hope you're all doing well. And in today's video, we're breaking down the first two episodes of the Hawkeye series, what things you may have missed, and my own personal thoughts and opinions, as well as a few theories here closer towards the end of the video. So stay tuned for that. Let's hop right on into it. Of course, as always, I want to be 100% honest to give my own personal views and honest opinion on exactly what I thought about this first two episodes here of the Hawkeye series. Let's start out here with episode 1. Episode 1, of course, it did what it's supposed to do, as any TV show is supposed to do. It sets up the basic characters and a little bit of a plot here for what we're going to be seeing here throughout this series in the next month here. And so with that, that's pretty much exactly what they did. And of course, it's really cool to finally get a solo project here for Hawkeye. So I'm glad that they're focusing on him. I don't want to focus too much on Kate Bishop right now, not yet at least. Now, it very well could have a season 2 for the show. However, I honestly really highly doubt it. It seems very unlikely, but never say never, because I said the same thing with the Loki series. I felt like that was very unlikely to have a second season, and here we are. We're going to be getting a second season here. However, just straight off the bat, overall, of course, episode 1 did what it's supposed to do. It did its job of setting up the basic plot, establishing its key characters, and that type of thing here. And overall, in my own personal thoughts and opinions, it just felt a little bit slow, especially compared to some of those other Marvel shows / movies that we have been getting here for Phase 4. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, though. And here's the kicker. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, and I know that many of you may disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. Kate Bishop is incredibly annoying in episode 1, and she already has begun to grow on me in episode 2. I'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. And it's not even necessarily her character completely in episode 1 of Kate Bishop that annoys me. It's really more or less the whole scene there where they have that secret bidding show going on in the back, and she sneaks her way in there, and then of course they get attacked here by the jumpsuit mob. I do believe they are called here, actually also in the comics as well, which is pretty interesting. Must I also note that it's pretty funny how they also always say bro like it's a catchphrase. But dudes, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I felt like that fight scene with Kate Bishop, of course, between this mob of guys here that were trying to steal these artifacts and that type of stuff, it was a really cool scene, don't get me wrong, but I felt like the editing as far as sound goes and audio editing goes, it felt a little bad, it felt a little sloppy. Between Kate Bishop and the fight scenes here felt a little rough here and there, which they are supposed to, but the overall audio of Kate Bishop and her grunts, the whole he type of thing when she's fighting these guys, it felt extremely fake, and it felt over exaggerated like crazy, which just made it really awful. And it's not necessarily her fault as an actress or even as a character. Honestly, I just felt like that was just bad editing to begin with, and that's something that we have to tread very carefully with Marvel and going forward here, because this is something that a lot of the people over in the Star Wars community, if you guys are into Star Wars, I will have my Star Wars channel linked down in the description down below. Of course, we seem to be very cautious on these types of ideas of having so many shows and so many movies coming out in a year, like back to back, like Marvel is doing here. And of course, as a Marvel fan, I really liked it, and I think that it's been doing great this entire time so far. I felt like everything has felt really great. Nothing feels rushed or anything like that. And then again, there's also a huge delayment of a lot of Marvel projects only about around a month ago, I want to say now at this point, where a bunch of Marvel projects were actually pushed back in order to allow more time for developing these series / movies, which is something I'm very grateful for, and honestly it's really my only complaint throughout this entire series. And while we're on the overall subject here of Kate Bishop here and her character being quote-unquote annoying, they are purposely doing this. We see this all the time in Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, Ezra Bridger, Omega, if you guys are familiar with those characters, where they purposely set these characters up to be extremely annoying, and then they kind of develop them. It gives them a lot more developing room as characters and make fans become to love them. They do the same thing with Tom Holland's Spider-Man a little bit here and there, and there's a lot of similarities you guys may notice between Kate Bishop and Tom Holland's Spider-Man Peter Parker, which I think is really cool. But yeah, that's something that I'm noticing that they are purposely doing here with Kate Bishop and her character. Now, talking a little bit more about here Clint Barton, Hawkeye himself here, and the overall legacy that he holds that we barely even know about of Hawkeye / being the Ronin is something that is very interesting to watch throughout the course of 13 years of MCU, and then for us to finally elaborate on it, I think is actually actually really, really interesting and something really, really cool and something that we've never actually seen, I think, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And honestly, to begin with the overall, I guess, cinematic universe out there to begin with. I mean, any movies out there, I bet there's something out there that's like that, but seeing this in the MCU and more or less in the modern day, I think is something really, really cool to experience. The overall idea of Hawkeye and his purpose throughout this series is to be not only a mentor for Kate Bishop and her character, but also to be a father figure. So in a sense, this is essentially like Tony Stark / Peter Parker, almost in a sense, to kind of compare it with that. Which, don't get me wrong, it works, and I think it's a good idea. It develops for an interesting story / idea and concept, and then of course they can bend it and twist it here and there for it to stand out here and there, but this is something I don't want them to continue to do with future Marvel projects. We're going to talk a little bit about Lucky the dog here just for a split second here. I think he's a great character. Hopefully he plays some sort of significant role here within this overall TV series rather than just being a cute dog that's always there. Also, when I was watching this series, my dad pointed out it looks a lot like Nick Fury as a dog, except. Now, talking a little bit about episode 2 here, we're going to kind of skim over it for the basic idea of what it was. I think it did really well with connecting to episode 1 and carrying and transitioning on the story. This is something very clever that they've been doing with TV series overall over on Disney Plus. It makes everything just kind of transition a whole lot better rather compared to movies, where if you have a movie, there's going to be a lot of time gaps between a lot of movies, of course. But when it comes to TV series, it gives you a longer time to really love these characters and become one with these characters. Now, talking a bit about what happened here at the end of episode 2 sets up really initially for the rest of this overall series here, that there would be this lady, this strange lady that we're seeing here at the end of the series. This here is said to be Echo. Now, Echo is a heavily connected character towards Daredevil and the Daredevil series that we had on Netflix only a couple years ago now at this point, and Daredevil is something that is heavily being rooted to join the MCU, especially entering within the Spider-Man universe. Honestly, personally, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to introduce Daredevil through the Spider-Man universe. I think that they should just completely introduce him as his own complete solo project. That way I think it'd be a lot cooler. It's definitely a stepping stone, but I really would prefer for them to introduce Daredevil separately into his own series / even movies. I think would be really, really cool for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for a little bit of theory and suspicions here for this overall character of Echo and what she's going to be doing here throughout the rest of the series. Not only I think is she going to be a stepping stone for introducing Daredevil and all those characters within the Hawkeye series for one thing, I think, let alone the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe for another thing, but the actor that portrays Kingpin within the Daredevil Netflix series for another, I think is really, really cool because he's actually teased multiple times at having some sort of introduction as Kingpin into the MCU within the Hawkeye series for another thing. Now, something very important you guys should know about Echo before we move on into later episodes for the Hawkeye series is that this character is actually deaf. This is something that's also affecting Clint Barton in his hearing, as they have explained it already in the Hawkeye series. It's just kind of throughout time and really overall being an Avenger and being near all these explosions and that type of thing throughout the last 10 years of being an Avenger. That's how Clint Barton's kind of becoming deaf here, and I think it's really cool that they're bringing in these types of superheroes and characters within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think is pretty cool. That there really does it for my whole theories and speculations here for what else we're going to see throughout the rest of the series. I do have one last complaint, however, for episode 1. I know I've already done my fair share of complaining about episode 1 and Kate Bishop with those poor editing and audio effects here, but young Kate Bishop just absolutely killed me. I honestly thought it was the most cringiest thing to an extent here. When you're at your dad's funeral, you're not going to say that, "Give me a bow, I'm going to protect us." It just sounds so cringy, and of course, it's just out of pocket. And sure, it can be a memorable line throughout the series, and for that character and her legacy that she's going to bring here towards the MCU, but it's just, you could have chosen any other place to do this or say that line, but yeah, you had to choose a funeral setting out of all. It just doesn't match, and I just couldn't take it serious. It just sounded super, super cringy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to hate or anything like that, or be a Debbie Downer or anything like that. I'm simply just here to share my own thoughts and opinions, honestly. I just want the show to be as realistic as possible and connecting to the MCU. And in those terms, yes, I'd also know nothing really in the MCU is that realistic. I'm just speaking out on as far as lines in these shows and movies go. I will also mention the overall upbringing and backstory of Kate Bishop, and seeing her relive those events in 2012 Avengers on the attack of New York is mega cool, and really cool how they did those flashbacks. I really think that there is really cool, and I really love that they put that in there. It's definitely a pretty cool idea to kind of bring in there and kind of see that she saw Hawkeye fighting during the Battle of New York. I think is really cool. One last theory and suspicion, speculation, if you will, here. Jack is definitely up to something. He's definitely a little suspicious out there, of course, but one thing I do hate that they do in Marvel shows is they don't portray full context when they say that somebody's lying about something or lying about this. They just say, you're lying. And it's just like, what are you lying about? Okay, come on, give us a little more context here. You can't just be yelling that and that type of thing. I also find a little bit cringy, but hey, that's just my own personal thoughts and opinions type of thing. This is something that they often did within the Loki series. It's not something really talked a whole lot about the Loki series here on the channel, actually, now that I kind of think back on it, but he's definitely up to something, and watch out for his character. And yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below, guys. What do you guys think about these first 2 episodes of the Hawkeye series, guys? What do you guys have for future speculations and theories here for the future of this series here in future episodes? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, as it really does help the channel, and check out our Instagram unofficial MCU for more Marvel-related content, guys. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Of course, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.